Hello and welcome to this CADbert tutorial on interior mode, where we'll be taking you through a lot of the functions that you can do while in interior mode. So let's get started with our interior demo. I've created this room for demonstration purposes already, and let's start by adding a bed to this room. So I'm going to go down here, click Add, and I'm going to select from the bed category. And you can see that it has different size beds to pick from. I'm going to select the California King here, and I'm going to position it relative to a wall or a node. So you'll see for doors and windows, there are these light blue nodes, which are reference nodes that you can use as a reference, or you can use a wall. So if I were to click on the wall, that would be my reference. Or if I were to click on one of these reference nodes, uh, that will be my reference. So let's do it relative to this node here. And I'm going to click on Next. And here's a representation of that node and the wall. The dimensions are preset for California King, so I won't change those. I'll click on Next. And let's put this bed, say 3 feet down from the door. And then let's just put it 3 inches away from the wall. And there we've positioned our bed. Another option for add that we could have done, which we'll use right now, is just to click on the segment. And I'm going to do an add. And for this segment, I am going to add some seating. I'll put a couch here, or let's just do this love seat. And you can see what happens is that by default, this will be positioned in parallel with the wall that we selected. So for dimensions, I'm just going to leave the defaults right now. And I am going to center it on this wall, so nothing on these two dimensions. And we'll put it 3 inches away from the wall. And there we have our love seat. You can also add objects relative to other objects. So for example, let's say I wanted to put a table at the foot of the bed here. I'm going to click on the bed and I'm going to do an add operation. And then we're going to add a table. And I'll just pick a simple rectangular table. And I want to add it to the end of the bed, so I'll select this side of the bed. And then for dimensions, let's make this 2.5 feet deep. And we'll make this, let's say 4 feet wide. And I want to center it on the end of the bed, so I won't enter anything here. And I'll put it, say, 4 inches from the end of the bed. And there we have our table. So now I'm going to use the group operation to group the bed and the table together, such that if I move the bed around, the table goes with it. So to do that, I click on the group icon. I click on the bed to add the bed to the group, and then click on the table to add the table to the group. And then once all my elements are selected, I come back down here and click on the group button again. And there's a number of different options available. The first 4 options will operate on the group that we've just formed, but once the operation is complete, the group is dissolved. So it's just a temporary grouping for editing purposes. And the last option is a save, where you can save that as a permanent group. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'll do the save operation. So next, I'm going to demonstrate the move operation. So if I were to click on this table now, you'll see that it brings up the group menu. So if I wanted to actually edit the table instead of the group, I just click on this again, and now it's selected the table, and then in red here it outlines the group just to show you that the table is a member of that group. And I'm going to move that table, and I'll do a move relative to self, and then you can move it in any direction that you want. So I'm going to put 6 inches here to move it up 6 inches. And then since this is a repeatable operation, you can click on the repeat and it'll keep nudging it by 6 inches. So next on this table, I'm going to once again do a move, but I'm going to move it back centered with the bed. So we did relative to self. Now I'm going to do relative to object. And the reference object I want is the bed here. And we're moving it relative to the end of the bed. And I want to center it on the bed again. So I'm just going to clear these two and click done. And we're centered on the bed once again. So next I'm going to select this group here. Go back to our move menu, and the one operation we haven't done yet is move relative to a wall or a node. So let's do that, and let's pick this reference node here to move relative to. And you can see the 3 feet here from the node, which was our initial placement. And just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to clear that out. Now I could enter 0 here if I wanted to, or I can just leave it blank, and that represents a 0 value. And you'll see that it butted both the bed and the table as a group right up against the edge of the door. So let's just undo that for now. So move operations for an object on an angle are a little bit different. So I'm going to click on here and do a move, and we'll do move relative to self. Now when it first comes up, you have the option of moving this horizontally or vertically, but you can also move it in the same plane as the object. So down here, if I click on the plane button, it gives me the option to move it in the same plane as the object. So I'm going to move it 1 inch further away from the wall. And so you can see if I repeat that operation, it'll keep nudging it 1 inch away from the wall. Now let's go back and select this table again. And the next operation after move is resize. This is pretty straightforward. You can just resize the original object. So originally we specified 4 feet, which is 48 inches. So I'm just going to clear this and do 5 feet instead. And you can see that the table got wider, so that's fairly straightforward. Now let's go back to the love seat here and do the next operation on the list, which is a copy. So since this is slanted, you have the option of copying in the XY plane, either vertically or horizontally, or copying in the same plane as the object. So let's do both so you can see what the difference is. So in this direction, we're going to put it right up against it 0 feet. And contrary to what you might expect, it doesn't just copy to the edge of the bounding box. The 0 that we specified in this case is basically the spacing between these two objects when you make a copy in that direction. So it's almost, so it's basically like an aisle type spacing between the two objects. So let's undo that. And now let's go back in here and do the copy again, but this time let's do it in the plane of the object. And we'll do 0 feet here. And you can see I just made a copy in that same direction, and you can continue to repeat that if you so desire. So I'm just going to undo that. So next we'll go back to our love seat, and we'll explore the rotate option. So the first option in the rotate menu is rotate by 90 degrees. It'll rotate clockwise by 90 degrees, and you can repeat down here and keep rotating by 90 degrees as much as you want. So that's pretty straightforward there. Next rotate is you can specify an amount. So it shows you what the actual current rotation is. And I'm going to rotate it by 20 degrees. And you can see that rotates it in the clockwise direction. If I wanted to rotate it counterclockwise, like I could enter -20, and it rotates it counterclockwise. So let's just stick with the original 20. And it will rotate it around the center of the object. So and again, you can keep repeating that. So I'm just going to leave it there facing out the window so we can see the great outdoors. So let's go back to the rotate menu. And the next option is to rotate to a reference. And what that means is that you can pick a wall or an object and have this rotated by the same amount. For example, I could pick this wall, in which case it rotates in that direction. Or if I pick this wall, it would rotate with its back aligned to that direction. Or I could pick this object and it would be rotated in the same direction as that object. But let's go back to having this rotated correctly relative to this wall, like that. So now let's go back to this table here and go back to the rotate menu and look at the last rotate option, which is move corner. Now, what move corner does is it allows you to rotate the object based upon the measurement difference between corners. So what I mean by that is, let's say that you wanted to move this corner further away from the bed, but you wanted this corner to stay fixed. So in this case, what you would do is, you know what this measurement is, and let's say you want to move this 1 foot out compared to that. So if you enter 1 foot here, you can see that, again, this is the rotate point, and it moved this 1 foot out. So if I were to click done now, this is what you'll see, where this corner remained anchored, and this corner was moved out by an additional 1 foot. So let me just undo that, and I'm going to go back here again to my rotate menu, move corner, and now when you pick a particular corner, initially it'll select another adjacent corner as your anchor point. So in this case, it selected this as my anchor point. But if I wanted to move this relative to that anchor point, I just click on this again, and it changes to the other anchor point. So you can just change back and forth between the anchor points by clicking it. And the other thing too is that you can enter a positive and a negative number. So in this case, if I enter 1 foot, it rotates in the positive direction, or the clockwise direction. If I were to enter -1, it rotates in the other direction. So I'm just going to cancel out of that. Okay, so next on our list of functions is the flip option. Again, pretty straightforward. If I flip here, it flips it in this direction or back in this direction. In this case, the flip is only provided in this direction, because in this direction it's symmetrical, so it would look the same if you flipped in this direction. So let's flip it back towards the window, hit done. You can see that it's flipped. So next on our list of functions is the delete, which is fairly straightforward, where it will delete the object you selected. If you delete something accidentally, you can just go back to undo to bring that back. The next function is add. This function we already covered when we added the table relative to the bed. So I'm going to skip over that. Next is the attach function. And the attach function lets you attach text to this object, or you can attach notes. So when you attach text, in this case, I'm going to attach it to the back of the sofa here. So I'll pick the back, and the text that will enter, I'm just going to say back, and up here you see you have the option of enabling bold and or italic. So let's just get rid of bold, we'll just do italic. For now, let's leave the text height at 10 inches. And it will align the rotation of the back to the side that you picked. But in this case, let's face it the same direction as the rest of the sofa. So I'm just going to rotate this in that direction, and for now I'll leave it. Leaving these blanks will center it, and leaving this blank will put it right up against it. So I'm just going to hit done now, and you can see we have the text back there. So now when I click on that text, I can go back and edit it, and it also changed this love seat red to show that the back is attached to the love seat here. And so now if I were to go back to the love seat and say do a move operation, and I'm going to move it in the same plane here, and say move it back 2 feet, you can see that the attached text moved with the object. And to go back to the attach menu, the other thing that you can attach is a note. So you can enter freehand any kind of note that you want. So you can say ugly brown fabric, or whatever kind of note that you want, and click done, and that will attach the note. So now, which leads us to this next function. Now if I go back here and do a view, there's a few things that you can view. At the bottom is notes. So if I click on notes, there's my note right there, and I'm just going to click on done. So now let's go back to that view menu and look at the other options. So if you want to double check the dimensions of this, I can do view dimensions, and that gives you the dimensions of the love seat, 60 inches wide and 36 inches deep. Notice that it will not include the back, since the back is just attached text. It's just giving you the dimensions of the love seat itself. And you can also view its position relative to a wall. So I'm going to say view position, and I'm going to say relative to a wall. And so let's view it relative to this wall, and click next. And so it gives you the measurements basically from the corners of that wall, and from the and then directly out from the wall itself. And the other reference you can choose for view is, I'm going to go to this table, click view, position again, and I'm going to do a relative to object, and I want to do it relative to the bed, and I want to do it relative to the end of the bed, and it will show you what the dimensions are in from the end of the bed, and what the distance from the end of the bed is. That pretty much covers the functions available in Interior Mode. The only other thing I'd like to mention is that there are a couple of special elements in Interior Mode. If you go under Add, there's an Add Counter function. Adding and manipulating counters is covered in a separate video, so you can go look at that video if you want a deeper dive there. And the other unique element is under Seating, where if you go down here and pick the sectional, it brings up a sub-menu so you can build your own sectional. So for example, let's say I wanted to start with the corner, and I'll put that relative to a wall, and let's say I'll put the corner in this corner here. So first I want to rotate it to be in that direction. For now, I'll just leave the default measurements here, and I will put it 0 feet from that corner, and we'll put this a few inches out from the wall here. Click Done, and so there's our first piece of the sectional. Now, if we wanted to add some middle pieces to the sectional, what I can do is click on this and do an add operation, and go back to Seating and pick the sectional again. And now I'm going to pick one of these middle pieces, and I want to put it against this end here. And I'm going to rotate it because I want it aligned like so. I'll leave the default measurements for now, and I want to line it up with the back. So I'm going to put 0 here, and I want it right up against it. But if I leave this blank, that will imply 0, so I'm just going to leave that blank. And you can see it added that piece. Now if I wanted to replicate this, I can just come in here now, do a copy, and do 0 feet in this direction. And then I can use the repeat to add another section there if I wanted. And finally, I will attach an end piece to here. So I'm going to do Add, Seating, pick the sectional, and pick this end piece here, attach it to this side. We're going to rotate that in the correct direction, align it to the back by specifying 0 here, and leave this blank so it'll put it right up against it. And there we have our completed sectional. So we hope you enjoyed our presentation on the CADbert Interior Mode. For other tutorials, as always, you can check out our YouTube channel, and you can also check out our website for additional information on upcoming features and releases.